Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk to you through how I learned to do my lettering, how I transfer my lettering to my journal. A big shout out to Brittany Miller who commented on a previous video and wanted to see this. This one is for you and anyone else that wants to see lettering, not just for Brittany. But I think I can say it's got to be about dot grid paper for lettering. That's how I've learned. That's certainly what makes it easier for me. And I did try and film this in a time lapse and then do a voiceover, and it was just way too difficult to try and explain all the different parts of lettering. So I thought if I sat down with you, put the camera on, started to talk, and we'll just do this in real time. So I'm going to pick the word November because that's the month that we're coming up in. And all of my letters and lettering in my journal is very block style. It's the easiest style that I can do. And it really is dictated by these dots on a dot grid paper. So for example, the trunk on the N for November, I'm using 3 squares, 3 dots. And then, so that's this column. So I usually do three 0.5 dot spacings squares for the beginning of the N. The next column over I use as my bridge, so I start from that second dot down and I come up to that dot. And then I have this column here, this third column, which is going to be the final part of my N, which I will then go round, and then this makes the last trunk of my N. Now, there's loads of different styles, and how you do these styles depends on how that lettering looks to you. So if you want to make it quite a block type of lettering, bring that line up to perhaps halfway and then make your bridge over and then use that bridge too, and you get quite a chunky N. Make it quite rounded, and then you get quite a rounded N so that you don't actually meet that little dot just there. So we'll do that to begin with. We'll make quite a rounded block lettering for November, and then we'll play around with just changing and tweaking some of these lines so that they start to look different. So for November, I'm doing, this lettering is going to be 3 squares high, and the general rule for letters is that they're going to be 3 squares wide, unless you've got your bigger letters like M and W. So I'm going to make a circle for my O, and again, because I'm using the dot grid, it's really easy to see how wide I want things to do. I'm just following the dots. And then for V, so I'll start up here and I'll come down to the next dot along, so 3 down but 1 over. I'll have a square bottom, and then I'll do the same, 1 dot space over, but I'm going to take it all the way up to the top of my letter. The same, it's going to be 1 dot width, and then I'm going to come down perhaps just to a middle point here, and then that's my V. And E I do in a very sort of similar way to my O, in that it's absolutely acceptable to draw yourself that circle first, and then sort of about halfway, 1 dot over, halfway, draw your horizontal line in, and then this becomes your E. So I'm going right down, and I'm using these dot grids to sort of try and give myself a base so that I can, most of the widths and the strokes and all of these are going to be a similar width thing. And then we come to the larger letters. M is a much larger letter. I'm going to do exactly the same that I did with that N. I'm going to attempt to create an N. I'm going to use this middle column to be that bridge over, and then I'm going to complete my N. But rather than round it off here, what I'm then going to do is use this next column to be another bridge. And then I will come down and make that third one, and then finish that bridge too. So for me, a lot of the times for these types of letters, it's 1 column for the trunk, the next column is for the bridge, and then the final column is for the final trunk. And then we have November. So B for November is a much taller letter, so I will elongate that. I don't think I usually make it that long. I think I only go 1 above. Let's not make it too high. So for B, it's just a longer one. Again, the next column over from B is going to be my my bridge column. So that's where I'm going to put my rounded letters. And then I think I'm going to keep it as a 3. I think if I went to B, it's much too wide. So keep it as 3. I've got 1, 2, 3 columns. So I come around for my B, and then from here I just try and blot in that little, I'm sure fonts and letters have got specific names. I'm like, this thing here, I'm sure that's it's got a word for it. I haven't studied lettering any more than to look at a font and to just draw it out. So I don't know what those names are. I'm sure if anybody does know, they're probably watching this video and having quite a giggle at me calling them all sorts of different names. But you didn't come here for a professional lettering. So again, I'm going to do the second E for November. I think when you come up against a word that has two of the same letters, the best thing you can do is just try and keep them consistent looking, so to make them look the same. I don't think I've ever managed to get them perfectly the same, but give it a go. That's as long as you're keeping the same width and the same height. So all of my letters are 3 dots, like the main bulk of the letter are 3 dots wide, and the majority of the normal spacing letters here are 3 dots wide, other than sort of M, which it was 3, but then it's another 2 because I've got another part of that on there. B is a 3, E is a 3, and then R for me is a smaller one. I tend to still do the same, still block out my 3 columns, still have that middle as my sort of branch, but then I usually tend to end it there. So an R for me is a 2-spaced letter. So other 2-space letters for me, I think R is, T, L. Ooh, F is usually a smaller one for me. I is a smaller one. There's probably more, but off the top of my head, I can't think of them. And the same with M. M is a small. M is a really large letter. W makes it a really large letter. So just play around with it. As long as you're making sure all these widths are as samey as you can get, then that will dictate how much space you need to go. If I'm trying to fit this M into this little 3-dot space, then I know that there's no hope of me getting 3 widths of those in. So play around with it, see how you feel. Now obviously this is sort of just the basic November lettering, and I try and do this in my journal for all the different monthly and weekly titles. But I'm using an A4 bit of paper that is horizontal, so to fit the word November in, it's really easy. I've been able to use 1 dot grid spacing for all my letters, like the in-between bits. So I've got as much space as I want, so it's really easy to write it out, but I completely get that sometimes the space you have in your journal is really tiny, so sometimes you'll only have sort of this space to put the word November in. So what I'd say to you again is to block out where you want your letters to be. Find out how many letters are in the word November. So if I put this out, so there are 8 letters in November. So the middle point is between 4 and 5, which is the E and the M, and then find your middle point on here. Yeah, it's probably there. Find your middle point, and these are the same middle points then for when you're trying to transfer the word November into this little space. The smaller your writing becomes, the smaller the overall writing needs to be. So I would probably start to put in an M here. And obviously I can't now do 1 full dot spacing to fit November in. So I'm going to go with half. I'm going to try a half. So I'm starting on this dot here, and I'm only going halfway between those 2 dots. So my bridge is only going to be half, so that's going to go to a dot. And then I'm going to sort of come down and back again. So I'm going to draw that M, but I'm making it really small, but I'm still using that dot grid as a guide to how big I've made things. And again, I'm going to take that B up and put him in so he butts up against here, because this M came half a dot grid space over. So here's that dotted line. So halfway, and maybe it came a little bit smaller, look, there you go, because the B was there. But just in the exact same way you'd be doing these, you start to block these in. So I know that actually an E is probably just going to be 1 dot grid square wide. And then keep going until you've put it all in. And then once you've done M, B, E, and R, then you move to this 4th bit and start with an E just here. So the E is going to come up right against that line. And I'm going to block in that E. And then we have a V. Now the reason I'm going to go and start with E and work backwards is that if I start with an N here, I don't know, I'm going to put in N, O, V, and then there's going to be a gap. So I've started from this side over, and then I'm going to start from this side and go backwards, work in my O, and then I can put in an N. And the good thing about doing it in pencil is that if you make a mistake or you try something and it doesn't work, get rid of it, like cross it out. This is clearly not the neatest that I've done. I think what I've started to do is I made that M really big. It came between these 2 dots, it was halfway. And then between these 2 dots, it was halfway. But then obviously all these letters got much smaller. So I probably should have put that line in first, and then I could have made all of these much taller so that they fit on that line. But that's the point. That's the take the big letters and then try and condense them down smaller. So if I get rid of my lines here for you. So if we still take that November, but you don't just want a block letter, you want something with a bit of frill and a slightly different look than just the block letters, then I'd stay still. Oh, I can't go that high, can I? My B. Yeah, we'll do it. No, we won't. We'll go 1 down. So I'd still start with my trusty three dots high, and I still do the same thing. I'd still block in that N. Excuse me. And then things that you can add to it, if you've seen the Times New Roman type font, you can add little, again, these must have a word, right? In the English language, what do you think these things are called? Nubbins? That's definitely not what they're called. There are English teachers dying a death. Whatever these little flourishes on the end of an NR, you can add them in. So you can make your shoulder really thin at this point and really big as it comes out. You can add a little N at the end. A trick that I do with the O, and I do a lot with my O's, is still, again, the same format. So this is centering around this square here. It's still 3 wide and it's still 3 tall. Instead of just doing that, filling in that circle to make that perfect circle, I'm going to stretch it and elongate it. So I'm going to take that top circle right up to the top and right up to the bottom and still keep the width. So I'm then going to draw a big oval in the middle. So now the width of this trunk here is still the same principle, and the width of this trunk is still the same principle, but I've really made this little shoulder bit up here a lot smaller and thinner. So it just gives the O a nicer one. Again, you can do the exact same principles we did with that first November, but just add some little funky bits on it. I'm not sure what these are called. I'm going to have to Google this now, and I'll probably have to put it up on the screen as to what these little, maybe that should be the video question. Do you know what these little extra nubbiny bits are on letters? What's their technical term? I have no idea what they're called. The E is exactly the same starting as what I've done with my block E. I'm going halfway, cutting it in half. And then the same that I did with here, I pushed this right to the top. I'm going to do the same here. So I'm going to make this horizontal line really tiny, and I'm going to go right up and make it almost to the top. So I'm going to really push. So this column here, again, is going to be the same width. So my E is going to come right down to the bottom and up again and across. So that you can hopefully then see that I took quite a bulk block E, and then actually by elongating that middle column up, I've made more of a sort of a Times New Roman E, maybe that's what we'll call it. The best advice I can give you if you want to do something like this with all these little flourishes is to go and Google the font that you want to try and recreate. So if that's a Times New Roman font, get yourself on Google and just put in Times New Roman font. On the images or on Pinterest, you should be able to see the alphabet quite clearly, and you'll be able to see on all the letters where these little bits go. You'll probably look back at this video and realise that I've made it up, and that where I've put them, they shouldn't go. That's because I'm not looking at Google, and I'm just winging it. But that's the point. So you can add all these little bits on, but go and find it on Google. Go and find the font style that you want. And then come back to your dot grid, use that same sort of principle, and then add in your flourishes. I don't know how I feel about not finishing the word November. I'm not sure if that's going to make me angsty. I'm going to try and not finish it. You'll probably see me at the end of the video. It'll just turn up where I've had to cut, edit and write it in, because that's the sort of person I am. And then the final one I wanted to show you was the faux brush lettering. Brush lettering, you know, the people that have the brush pens and they just brush letter freehand and it looks beautiful. That's not me. I'm still at the beginning of that brush lettering journey, so I teach myself how to sketch it out first. And I still use the exact same principle of this November, so I'd still use my three squares to begin my N. And what I'm doing is I'm slightly bowing the lines of this N. So instead of just being a straight up down following the line, these ones are starting to come out a little bit, not a lot, not a massive whoop, just a small, as if you were writing and it was sort of bending down. And then I'm coming up from the bottom. So the idea with brush lettering is that your pen goes top to bottom, and then it's going to come up and round. So what I'm going to do effectively is take that shoulder that started up here, I'm going to bring it much further down. Bring it right to the top, and everything's really bendy and loose, and bring it down, and then bring it up to the top and bring it down, and not be afraid to go below this line, because obviously we're having to, there's a looping motion to get right back up to do the O. So this splitter column here, this is the spacing between the N and the O. With all the other fonts, they've not been connected, so we've just left that as a blank space. When it comes to brush lettering, this column becomes important because it's our connecting column. So we're going to use that to take it right back up to make our O. Now with the O for brush lettering, I make it slightly different. So a normal O would look like that. It's just the circle that we've drawn. But I'm going to shorten it slightly. And I'm going to put in still a full column width for this O, and bring it down. But then when I bring it up the other side, I'm going to loop that bit. So I'm going to go right down and round, and then I'm going to loop. So right over and then back out into this, should we call it a transition column? Just the gap, the space between connecting the letters. Oh, the connective gap. That sounds much more professional. So I'm going to bring my O round, do a little swizzle in the middle of this O, and then come right out over the connective onto the first dot for where we start the V, and then move on to the V. The main principle that I can gather in brush lettering is that every downstroke is a thick stroke and every upstroke is a very thin stroke. So for a V, again, the old block lettering V was sort of like that. I'm still going to follow the left hand side being nice and thick because that's the downstroke. If I was writing it, that would be me going down. But then when it comes to going back up again, I don't want this block. What I want is a thin one. So I'm going to still put in the same one space dot line, still going to go up to the top, but I'm going to make this one much thinner. And then again, I've got my connective column, and it's going to be an E. So you're more than welcome to draw it in your circle because that's where it all starts. And that E sort of, when you start to draw an E, you start there and you draw around. Hopefully you'll draw an E like me, otherwise you'll be going, huh? But because I start here, this is the starting point. If I was to draw an E, this connector has got to come down to it. So I'm going to bring that down. And then I'm going to go round, and my down part of my E is going to be there. So instead of finishing it straight, I mean, that's a style in itself. You could just finish that straight like that. But with a brush, it's more loopy, so I'm just curving these lines so that they come together. And I'm going to probably make that just a little bit thicker. I will outline this and you'll see what I mean. This isn't going to just be one black outline. I'm going to do sort of a little gap outline. So I've got another connective one And then I'll have my M, so I'll block in that first bit of my M. And then this E is just going to go up to the M, which is where I begin. And again, these downward lines on this M, I am going to bow slightly. I'm not sure why I'm doing this, if anybody knows, but it kind of feels right. It feels how it should feel. And again, the same principles with this N is that we've gone down, so we're going to come up. This middle column of our N is going to be our connecting shoulder part of the character. Round we go to our M, so again this one's going to come round and fill it in, and we do exactly the same. It's a double one for an M, so we do that too, and then round it. So we've got our next connective column, so I'm going to have a B here with my little bowed lines. So that M's going to come round and it's going to try and get as much to the top as possible. And then I've got my B. Now B is a bit of a funny one because you've got a lot to do with a B. So we've got the smaller up direction, the bigger down direction, but then we've got to connect that B to what is going to be an E over here. So here's the E. So I'm going to start here. So I've got to get this line over here all the way over to B. So everything with brush lettering is just very loopy and very swirly. Not loopy like mad, but loopy. So I'm going to just bend it right round. Bend it right round. Bend this pen line right round. And then they're going to come over. And then that should hopefully hit my E for me. And then an R. An R was one of the ones I hated to begin with, but now I really love. So we've got our connective space next to the E. And then we'll have our R. So a normal R would have just been one of them, but it's slightly different with brush lettering. We're going to make what effectively looks like that. That's the R shape. So I'm going to take this right up to the top and I'm going to swirl it above. So I'm almost going up to the height of the B. I'm going to swirl it around right on that end of that connective, and I'm going to swirl around, and then I'm probably made too much. I probably could swirl it a little bit further around. Let's rub that and start again because I'm probably okay. There you go. So that's where our R column is. That's where it should start. So I'm going to swirl right up and loop round in this connective channel here. So I'm going to go up, loop round. Here's my R, and then every one that I'm just going to flick it off and make a really, so there's like another column. So I'm going to finish that connective column off. I'm going to make a nice big tail swoop for my R. And then that's how I would brush letter. Again, when it comes to putting this into your journal, you're not going to have the ease of just using all of these things, all of these little dot grid spaces to make this nice. But to practice, this is how I'd say practice, because then you get used to the dot grids helping you guide your spacing and things like that. And what I would say then is once you've got better at that, then try and condense it down so that you're doing, you know, an N. And this is a 3x3 square that I've made. So there's 9 squares in this box that I managed to fit the N in. Sort of condense that down and try and make it a 2x2 box. So then you're trying to fit your N into a 2x2 box. And then, so that gets it smaller and smaller. You'll see, I don't know if I've got my journal to hand. Let's have a look for it. If I've got a long month, so usually in my journal, sort of in the beginning of the year, I've got some quite, well, the middle of the year, I've got some quite small monthly, like June's only got 4 letters, so I can fit that horizontally. But for the months where I've got sort of January, obviously that's quite a long word. Can you see that? So there was no way I wanted to squash a January horizontally, so I flipped it and made it there. So it gives me space to put more spacing in between my letters. I'm going to see if I can find one that follows that three rule for you. This is probably the best example I've got. It doesn't quite follow it, but this one, I think the U does. So this is 3 dot spaces wide, and it's 3 dot spaces high. So I've used this exact I've used this exact, what are we going to call it? Example, using this 3x3 dot spacing. I've used this on all of these. And again, I've, instead of making like little nubbins, I've made little flicks. On some of them. Some of it I stop and I just do normal things. I don't think anything has to be perfect, does it? That's the thing I'd say to you. None of this has to look perfect. It's going to be in your journal for what, the most a month, a year. It's, you know, especially on weeklies as well. You go through a weekly within a week. That's kind of the point of it. So I would say, yeah, keep it sort of as simple as you can. Do not worry about it being perfect, but also don't rush. I am the worst for getting to the outline stage and then just wanting to rush. And then the problem is that I will make a mistake because all that nice time that I've spent penciling it out gets ruined because I get to this black outlining stage and I just want to finish up so I can colour, which is really annoying. But I just wanted to outline this one really quick before I end the video. I'm sure I've been waffling for far too long. But I just wanted to show you that these thinner lines. So I'm not just doing one line. I am making them into a tiny little double line. And I'm not doing too much in one. I'm literally going from one point to the other and then stopping and adjusting. So that I can get everything in and I don't make a mistake, she says. Famous last words. So have a play around with it, guys. Have a go. If you like this sort of video, if you found it helpful, please let me know. It's a completely different video to anything I've ever done. But I know a lot of you are really keen to practice and get better at stuff. I've never been a teacher, so this is a new one on me. So let me know what you think of my attempt, and be nice, you know, if you don't like it, that's fine. But let me know, and I will see you guys. I'm going to do a weekly this Sunday, so I will film that and get that up. So the weeklies will be back. So that'll be up on Sunday. I feel like I can't finish this video until I finish this outlining. Oh, why do we do these to ourselves as human beings? But that's from me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would appreciate if you did. We're pretty cool over here. We like bullet journaling and we like to get better at lettering, doodling, all of those kind of things. All right, guys, I will see you soon. Bye.